Did you know that for Roman soldiers, the most powerful weapon was not just the sword or the shield, but also their mind? In today's video, we will unveil the secrets of the social and psychological aspects that made the Roman army an unbeatable force. Strict discipline, fear control, and unbreakable courage were more than mere qualities, they were daily practices that shaped the warriors of Rome, creating an army that faced epic battles and emerged victorious. Now, imagine if you could apply these same principles to your life. The pressures of everyday life, the fear of adversity, and the quest for courage to move forward are challenges we all face, but what happened to the Romans can teach us how to overcome them. The discipline that shaped them was not only in combat strategies, but also in mental control, in how they faced their weaknesses, and in how they stayed united. The secret is simple: the mind is the greatest ally of those seeking victory. In this video, you will understand how social and psychological aspects created an unbeatable army and how, with the same teachings, you can face your own challenges with more strength and determination. Let's delve into these secrets and discover together how to apply these lessons in your daily life, so you too can transform your fears and obstacles into victories. Before we begin exploring the next topic, make sure you are subscribed to the channel, because what follows is a series of amazing videos that will help you better understand the history of Rome and how it can inspire your personal journey. Don't miss any content. In ancient Rome, life was not easy for many young men. They grew up in simple families, with few opportunities for advancement. The social system was rigid, and for those born poor, options were limited. This is where the Roman army became a valuable opportunity. Imagine being promised land and wealth in exchange for military service. These rewards were more than just material goods, they were the chance to completely change the course of one's life. For many, it was the only hope of achieving something that would otherwise never be possible. Beyond the rewards, there was something deeper: the pride of serving Rome. The Roman army was not just a military force, but a symbol of the power and greatness of the empire. Soldiers were seen as heroes, men who defended the most precious aspects of Roman society. From a young age, children learned that fighting for the empire was the greatest act of bravery and loyalty. Therefore, for many young men, enlisting in the army was not just a choice, it was a duty they fulfilled with honor. There was also significant social pressure. If you were strong and healthy, people expected you to serve in the army. Not enlisting could be seen as a sign of weakness or even betrayal to the country. No one wanted to be remembered as a coward. On the contrary, enlisting in the army was a way to earn respect, not only among peers, but also within society. It was like saying, "I am loyal to Rome and I am willing to fight for her." Another important point was the search for purpose. At that time, life could be difficult and lacking in prospects. For young men growing up in simple environments, the army offered structure, discipline, and clear goals. Amid so much uncertainty, being in the army was a way to find meaning in life. And although the training was rigorous and the path dangerous, this feeling of building something greater gave them the strength to continue. Enlisting was also a way to leave behind anonymity. In the army, even a young man without resources or social standing could stand out. There was the possibility of being recognized for their feats in battle and, in doing so, earning a place in history. For many, it was more than a career, it was the chance to become someone who would be remembered. The Roman army offered something unique: camaraderie. Leaving behind family and hometown was not easy, but soldiers found a new family among their battle companions. They trained, ate, and fought together, creating bonds that were often stronger than blood ties. This sense of belonging to something greater helped soldiers face the hardships and dangers of military life. Moreover, there was a strong organization within the army. Each soldier had a clear role and knew what was expected of him. This structure provided a sense of security, even amidst the uncertainties of battle. Knowing that you were part of such a well-organized force brought confidence and diminished the fear of the unknown. Discipline was another factor that attracted young men. In the army, everything was based on rules and rigorous training. This may seem harsh, but it also provided them with skills and strength they would never have had outside. It was as if the army transformed ordinary men into exceptional warriors. This transformation was a source of pride and made them feel capable of facing any challenge. Another reason was the possibility of traveling and discovering new lands. Many young people who grew up in small villages saw the army as an opportunity to explore the world. Military campaigns took soldiers to remote places where they could learn about other cultures and live adventures they would never experience at home. This idea of discovering the unknown was a great attraction. The dream of glory was also a powerful motivation. In ancient Rome, being remembered was very important. A brave soldier could have his name etched in history, recounted in stories and legends that span generations. For many, this was a way to achieve immortality, to ensure that their actions would not be forgotten. In addition to individual rewards, there was the feeling of being part of something greater. The Roman army was not just an institution, it represented the strength and unity of the entire empire. Knowing that their actions contributed to the greatness of Rome gave soldiers a sense of achievement that went beyond the material. It was like being an essential cog in a massive machine of power. The rituals and traditions of the army also strengthened the bonds between soldiers. Before battles, they held ceremonies that invoked the protection of the gods. These moments were not just spiritual, they created a sense of unity and courage that prepared soldiers for what was to come. For many, life in the army was a way to overcome fear. By facing extreme challenges, they learned to trust themselves and their comrades. This did not mean that fear disappeared, but rather that it transformed into strength and determination. This resilience was one of the distinguishing characteristics of Roman soldiers. Even with all its difficulties, the army offered tangible rewards. Soldiers could receive a share of the war booty, in addition to salaries and bonuses. At the end of their careers, many obtained land, allowing them to start a new life as landowners. These rewards were proof that effort and sacrifice were worth it. In the end, enlisting in the Roman army was much more than a practical choice. It was a combination of ambition, duty, hope, and belonging. For the youth of that time, it was an opportunity to build a life worth living. Not just for themselves, but also for the eternal glory of Rome. The Roman army also offered something that went beyond material rewards or the pride of service, an identity. Many of the young men who enlisted came from different regions, with different customs and languages. By joining the army, they left behind their local origins and became part of something much larger, a war machine that symbolized the unity of the entire empire. This transformation created a new way of thinking and acting. It didn't matter where they came from, now they were all soldiers of Rome. That was a source of immense pride. Another aspect that attracted many young people was the stability that the army provided. In a time when life could be unpredictable and full of challenges, military service offered a clear and predictable routine, even in times of war. There were times for training, eating, resting, and even free time. This structure was especially appealing to those coming from lives with little perspective or organization. Military training in Rome was known for being rigorous but also character building. Recruits learned discipline, physical endurance, and strategic skills. But that was not all, the training also shaped the minds of the soldiers. They learned to control their fear, to follow orders without hesitation, and to trust their comrades completely. This process created men who not only knew how to fight but also deeply believed in the purpose of what they were doing. Loyalty to the empire was constantly reinforced. Roman commanders were masters at inspiring their men, using speeches and examples of great feats from the past. They reminded the soldiers that they were fighting not only for their own lives, but also for the future of Rome, their families, and all of civilization. This sense of greater duty was a powerful motivation. Military campaigns, although dangerous, also had their moments of glory and celebration. When a battle was won, soldiers were welcomed with celebrations and triumphant parades. These events not only recognized their efforts but also reinforced their sense of community and belonging. They were treated as true heroes, and this public admiration was an emotional reward that many valued deeply. Throughout their service, soldiers learned to face the hardships of war almost naturally. Fear, for example, was something everyone felt, but intense training and battle experience helped turn that fear into action. They knew they were not alone, that they could count on their comrades by their side. This mutual trust was essential for survival and victory. Another point that strengthened the Roman army was the emotional reward of belonging to a brotherhood. The bonds between soldiers were so strong that, in many cases, they became closer to each other than to their own families. This connection was forged in moments of life or death, where each person depended on the other for survival. This sense of camaraderie was as important as any material reward. Even those who did not survive the battles left a legacy. The families of fallen soldiers received financial compensation, and their names were remembered with honor. For many, this was a way to ensure that, even after death, their contribution to Rome would not be forgotten. This gave soldiers a sense of symbolic immortality, deeply valued in Roman culture. Moreover, the army offered opportunities for social advancement. Men who demonstrated bravery and leadership could rise to prominent positions, such as centurions or commanders. These positions not only brought more respect but also better living conditions and influence within the empire. This meant that even those from the lowest classes could, through merit, achieve a status that would otherwise be impossible. The long duration of military service also had its benefits. After years in the army, soldiers received generous pensions, often including land in newly conquered regions. This land was a valuable gift that allowed veterans to start a new life as farmers or settlers. It completely transformed their living conditions, ensuring security and stability for them and their families. Another advantage was the opportunity for cultural learning. During campaigns, soldiers traveled to distant lands, meeting new people, traditions, and languages. This experience broadened their horizons and gave many of them a worldview they would never have had in their hometowns. It was a form of personal enrichment that went beyond battles and material gains. Despite the difficulties, Roman soldiers had a strong connection with their leaders. Many commanders, like Julius Caesar, were seen as almost mythical figures. They led by example and shared the same hardships and risks as their men. This closeness created a mutual respect that made soldiers feel valued and motivated to do their best. The organization and strategy of the Roman army were also impressive. Each soldier knew exactly their role in battle, and the formations were so well trained that they functioned as a single organism. This efficiency gave soldiers a unique confidence, even in disadvantageous situations. They knew that together they could face any enemy. Ultimately, being a Roman soldier was not just a job, it was a way of life. It was a journey that shaped character, created opportunities, and offered tangible and intangible rewards. For many, it was the only way to achieve something greater than themselves and ensure that their names would be remembered for eternity. The Roman army was, for these men, a blend of challenge, honor, and hope for a better future. So, did you know how the Roman army was formed and how it became one of the greatest military powers in history? Have you ever imagined what the social and psychological aspects of Roman soldiers were like, filled with physical and mental challenges and unwavering courage? Tell us in the comments if you were already aware of these intense social aspects that were fundamental for Rome to conquer the world. And if this topic sparked your interest, be sure to share your thoughts here. We would love to know what you think. The psychological training of Roman soldiers was believed to prepare both the mind and the body, as commanders understood that a battle was not won solely by strength, but by mental control. The training began with activities that simulated the chaos of war. Recruits were exposed to loud noises, sudden movements, and surprise situations, so they learned to remain calm amidst confusion. This meant that, on the battlefield, they were already accustomed to the unexpected and could react without hesitation. Discipline was at the heart of the training. Soldiers learned from a young age that every movement had a purpose and that following orders was vital for everyone's survival. They were trained until each action became an automatic reflex. If a commander shouted formation, each soldier knew exactly where they were and what to do. This constant preparation was essential for coping with the stress of war. The idea of unity was constantly reinforced. Recruits were taught to think of the group above themselves. They learned that success depended on mutual trust among teammates. Techniques such as the phalanx formation were practiced repeatedly, where each shield protected the soldier next to them. This training created a sense of collective invincibility. Each person knew they were an indispensable part of a powerful machine. Commanders played a fundamental role in this process. They not only gave orders but also inspired their men. During training, leaders demonstrated courage and determination, showing they were willing to face the same risks as the soldiers. This created a connection of respect and admiration. This motivated recruits to follow their instructions with complete confidence. The psychological pressure of training was used to strengthen mental fortitude. Soldiers faced extreme scenarios, where they had to deal with sleep deprivation, long marches, and physical endurance tests. These conditions forced recruits to find strength within themselves. They learned to adapt to adverse situations, knowing that even in the worst circumstances, they could surpass their own limits. Repetition was one of the most powerful tools. Every combat movement, every formation, and every response to a surprise attack was rehearsed countless times. This made actions feel natural, eliminating the fear of making mistakes. This repetition also helped soldiers stay focused, even in moments of panic. In addition to group training, soldiers were encouraged to develop self-control. They learned not to show fear or weakness, knowing that their reactions could influence others. A soldier who remained calm in a dangerous situation was seen as a role model. This further strengthened the collective spirit. Emotional support was also part of the training. Soldiers were encouraged to forge strong bonds with one another. These bonds went beyond camaraderie, they were like a second family. This emotional connection helped recruits cope with homesickness and the burden of being away from their loved ones. Religious rituals played an important role in psychological strengthening. Before battles, ceremonies were held to invoke the protection of the Roman gods. These rituals created a sense of security, as if a higher power was by the soldiers' side. This belief gave them extra courage, even when facing terrifying situations. In addition to rituals, soldiers participated in celebrations and recognition ceremonies. Those who excelled in training or combat were publicly praised, which strengthened individual and collective pride. This type of recognition showed that their efforts were valued and that they were part of something much bigger than themselves. The clear hierarchy within the army was another point that helped maintain psychological stability. Each soldier knew his place and his responsibilities. This eliminated confusion and gave everyone a sense of purpose. Knowing that there was a plan and that everyone had a role to play built confidence, even in the most difficult times. During campaigns, soldiers had the opportunity to gradually adapt to the new environment. They trained in varied terrain, simulating the conditions of the regions where they would fight. This increased their confidence, as they knew they were prepared to face any kind of adversity. The army also promoted a sense of honor. Recruits were constantly reminded that they were defending not only their lives, but the entire Roman Empire. This responsibility was seen as a privilege and gave soldiers an added motivation to fight bravely. In addition, there was the reward factor. Soldiers knew that at the end of their service, they could receive land, wealth, and status. These promises created a powerful incentive because they represented the opportunity to improve their lives and those of their families. In the end, psychological training was a process that never ended. Even veterans went through constant drills and preparations to keep their skills sharp. This ongoing commitment to training was what made the Roman army such a feared and respected force. They were not just well-trained warriors, they were soldiers mentally prepared to face any challenge that came their way. The psychological training of Roman soldiers went far beyond teaching strategies or shaping practical skills. It was a continuous work of molding minds capable of withstanding the most extreme situations. The soldier's mindset was forged around a simple but powerful concept: resilience. This resilience was not just physical, but emotional and mental, built so that fear, pain, and exhaustion would never take over their decisions in the heat of combat. One of the most important strategies was familiarity with violence. For soldiers who often came from peaceful farms or villages, the army created an environment in which contact with brutal situations was normalized. This included seeing and dealing with bloody combat simulations. Recruits were exposed to challenges that mimicked the harshest reality of battle. This preparation made them more resilient to the psychological impact of the horrors of war. In addition, trainers used routine as a mental strengthening tool. Each day followed a well-defined sequence of activities, from physical exercises to physical training. This repetition gave soldiers a sense of stability and predictability, even when they were far from home or in difficult conditions. Routine acted as a psychological foundation, giving them something constant amidst the chaos. The role of punishment was another fundamental aspect of training. Any failure to follow orders or follow established rules was dealt with severely. Although it may seem extreme, these punishments served to teach that individual error could cost the lives of the entire unit. This created social pressure among soldiers, where everyone felt a responsibility to keep up. At the same time, reward was widely used to motivate soldiers. When someone excelled, they were not only praised, but often given promotions or privileges. This created a culture of merit, where effort was recognized and encouraged. This dynamic of punishment and reward was a balance that kept soldiers focused and determined. The emotional bond between soldiers was another key piece of psychological training. During long campaigns, they were encouraged to view their comrades as brothers. This connection wasn't just strategic, it had a profound impact on morale. Knowing that someone at your side was willing to fight and die together generated a sense of security and courage that couldn't be taught any other way. Fear management was also an essential component. Commanders knew that fear was an inevitable emotion on the battlefield, but they taught soldiers how to channel it productively. Instead of letting fear paralyze them, they learned to use it as motivation to act faster, protect themselves better, and fight harder. This approach turned fear into an ally, not an enemy. Another little discussed but essential aspect was the use of stories of victory and heroism. Soldiers were often exposed to stories about legions overcoming impossible challenges or warriors performing extraordinary feats. These narratives served as inspiration and showed that even the most difficult situations can be overcome with courage and determination. Group training also had the function of building trust among soldiers. During combat simulations, it was common for recruits to rely on their colleagues to complete missions or survive challenges. This type of constant practice reinforced the idea that the army was stronger as a whole than individually. The integration of new recruits was also done with great care. In addition, there was a great investment in creating symbols that unified soldiers, such as flags, shields, and war hymns. These symbols reinforced the feeling of belonging and the importance of what they stood for. Wearing the insignia of a legion was a constant reminder that they were part of something much bigger than themselves. Soldiers were also taught to cope with death, both their own and that of their comrades. They learned that mortality was an inevitable part of war, and that honoring the dead by continuing to fight was the greatest show of respect. This helped them cope with losses with greater resilience and move forward even in the most difficult situations. This made them feel that they had control over their environment, reducing the impact of stress and fear. Finally, the psychological training of Roman soldiers was a process that integrated mind, body, and spirit. Every technique and every practice was aimed at creating well-rounded warriors, who would not only fight, but think, act, and believe that a united force is invincible. It was this combination of mental preparation and discipline that made the Roman army one of the most formidable forces in history. Before we move on to the next topic, I noticed that you haven't left a like on this video yet. This is very important as it helps YouTube promote our content to more people and so we can continue to provide more information to help you. So don't waste your time, leave your like here, it's free and it makes a difference. It costs. When Roman soldiers went into combat, fear was a natural emotion. But for them, fear was not something to be feared or avoided, it was something to be understood and controlled. From the beginning of their training, recruits were taught not to let fear rule their minds. They knew that if they gave into it, they could damage the unity of the legion and put everyone around them at risk. Instead of running away from fear, soldiers were trained to use it to their advantage, using the tension to become more alert and ready to act quickly. This learning about how to deal with fear began during training. From their first day in the army, soldiers faced challenges that forced them into uncomfortable and dangerous situations. This included heavy weapons training, battle simulations, and even stressful situations. These practices made fear something familiar, something they knew how to control. It was no longer an unfamiliar emotion, but a feeling they could master. One of the greatest allies in combating fear was camaraderie. Roman soldiers were not alone in their struggles. They fought side by side with their comrades, and this friendship was a powerful source of psychological support. By forming strong bonds with their colleagues, soldiers could rely on one another, knowing that together they would be stronger. This made the fear of failing others or leaving a comrade behind more painful than the fear of facing enemies. Each cared for the other, and this mutual trust helped ease the weight of battle. The thought of failing their teammates was not just a concern, but a powerful motivation. In the Roman army, honor was paramount. Soldiers were taught to fight not just for themselves, but for the entire legion. The shame of abandoning battle or not giving their best was feared more than death itself. This united mindset transformed the legion into an unbeatable force. When soldiers saw themselves as part of something bigger, the pressure of fighting became easier to bear. Leaders play a pivotal role in this fear control process. Roman commanders were not only brilliant strategists, but also skilled psychologists. They knew how to speak to their troops to inspire confidence, courage, and determination. Julius Caesar, for example, had a remarkable ability to motivate his men, even in the most difficult situations. He knew that to win he needed his soldiers to believe in their own strength. Furthermore, Roman leaders also led by example. They did not stand behind the soldiers, but were on the front lines, facing the same dangers as their men. This closeness between commanders and troops generated a deep connection, where soldiers not only followed orders, but trusted their leaders. When commanders stood alongside them, facing the same challenges, soldiers felt more confident and more willing to face fear alongside their leaders. The strict discipline of the Roman army was also essential in helping soldiers cope with pressure. The rules were clear and the consequences for those who did not follow them were severe. Desertion or lack of bravery were punished in an exemplary manner, with death being one of the most feared punishments. But at the same time, soldiers knew that bravery would be rewarded. Those who showed courage and leadership in battle could be promoted and earn the respect of their peers. This balance between punishment and reward created an environment in which soldiers were motivated to do their best, even in the most challenging situations. Fear was also combated by a collective approach. Roman legions functioned as a cohesive unit, where the success of one depended on the success of all. Soldiers were trained to work together, using tactical formations that required complete trust in the comrade at their side. This unity meant that individual fear was dispelled by the strength of the collective. Knowing that, together with their colleagues, the soldier was part of a larger, more powerful force reduced the psychological impact of fear. Each soldier also knew that the fight was for something very important. The idea of protecting the homeland and defending Roman civilization was a strong motivation that fueled the fighting spirit. The Roman army was not just a group of warriors, the legion was an institution that represented the values of Rome. For soldiers, fighting in the Roman army meant being part of something big. This responsibility helped them stay focused and reduce their fear of death or defeat. In addition, discipline also involved constant training in risky situations. During training, soldiers faced combat simulations that mimicked the most extreme conditions possible. This helped accustom recruits to the stress and pressure they faced in real battles. The more experienced they became, the more confident they were that they could handle any situation, no matter how terrifying. The sense of belonging was also reinforced by symbols and rituals. The use of legion banners and symbols reminded soldiers of their connection to the history of Rome and to their fellow soldiers. These symbols served as a source of inspiration. They reminded soldiers that when they fought, they were defending a legacy that spanned centuries. This emotional connection to Rome and the legion reduced fear, as soldiers felt they were fighting for something bigger than themselves. Fear management in the Roman army was therefore a matter of preparation, camaraderie, leadership, and discipline. The combination of these elements helped soldiers stay calm in the most tense situations. They were trained to know that fear would not define them, but courage and unity would. When a soldier looked at his comrades, he knew he was not fighting alone, and that gave him the strength to face even the greatest of fears. This philosophy of controlling fear allowed the Romans to become one of the most formidable armies in history. Not only because of the physical strength of their soldiers, but because of the psychological strength that kept them steadfast. They learned to fight not only with their weapons, but also with their minds, making battle not just a test of strength, but a true test of courage and endurance. Throughout this video, we explore how social and psychological aspects in the Roman army were instrumental in forming soldiers who not only faced physical battles, but also an enormous mental challenge. Relentless discipline, the power of camaraderie, and the control of fear formed the basis of an army that became one of the most feared forces in history. But the secret behind this effectiveness goes beyond war tactics. It lies in the psychological preparation that made Roman soldiers mentally unbeatable. Now, it is important that you stay tuned, as the secrets we reveal here not only explain the success of the Roman army, but can also teach us a lot about how to face life's adversities. Discipline, courage, and the unity of a group can make all the difference when we face challenges. Remember, true power is not only in our physical strength, but in our mind and how we shape it to face any battle. Thanks for watching this far. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to continue receiving the next content. See you in the next video.